You want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Marks. I'm your host, Paul fucking Talbot, and man, it is freezing in the studio today. Winter's definitely here. But first... I don't spend much time online anymore. The tattoo internet, it's just too full of negativity for me. Now, I know the moaning tattooist archetype has always been around, people griping about young tattooists not doing it right and new styles that won't heal, modern equipment being overpriced garbage shoved at us by faceless money grabbers. And yeah, sometimes they're right. But what does it actually do? Solve problems? No. Mostly it just makes us feel like shit and question why we're all here. So I've never felt that way. Tattooing is still the best job in the world as far as I'm concerned. And just because someone's had a few less birthdays than me or put a few less miles on the tattoo odometer, then it doesn't make them a fucking idiot. My guest today, Joshua, is a perfect reminder of this. His story is fascinating. And if you've ever felt like tattooing is too hard these days, I think you need to hear this. But I'll let him tell it himself. Enjoy, and I'll catch you next time. Here's my first question for you, because you got a pretty interesting route into this. You say you had a midlife crisis. I think midlife is a bit much, man, because you're only giving yourself till about 74 to live. So I hope you live longer than that. Like, you're not in the middle of your life yet, man. You're about a third of the way through. But you had a bit of a midlife crisis and had to be happy. So you decided to become a tattooist. Tell me about that then, Josh. So I guess that's going to be 2020, sort of COVID time of the planet, you know, when all of us were having the fucking weirdest year of our life. How was it for you? Is that what kicked it off into becoming a tattooist? What were you doing?
100%. Yeah, 100%, Paul. So what ended up happening is I have, from birth, I have scoliosis, which is a curvature of the spine. Throughout my life, I've had to have a couple different spine surgeries because of that. I had my first one at 16, and then I had a second one at 19 years old.
Wow.
So then during COVID, I started losing some feeling in my right leg, and I actually was dragging my foot when I walked. I mean, it was significantly bad. Yeah. And so I went back to my doctor, and we did some tests and did some x-rays, MRIs, the whole 9 yards, and all that stuff I'm very familiar with through my medical history. So I ended up having to go in to have spinal surgery on my spinal cord during COVID. So I was locked in a hospital for 6 days in the hospital by myself, no family, nothing, just recovering from surgery. And I had been working my entire life since I was 16 years old, and spending a week in the hospital just recovering while the world is burning around me. And I'm not even worried about the flu. I'm worried about being able to walk. You know, I'm worried about being able to move and not being fully paralyzed from spinal cord damage, from complications of the history of back problems. So I get out of the hospital, I mend, I go back to work. I worked in a cubicle farm, so I'm just in my cubicle farm every single day, 10 hours a day in a room with a bunch of other people with no lights. And I just realized I've never been happy. I've just been working for a paycheck to pay the bills. And I always knew the responsibility had to be, well, just make sure the bills are paid. Whatever you need to do, pay the bills. I told my wife, I said, you know, I've been getting tattooed at that time for about 17 years. And art has been something that's always been a passion of mine. And I've always told myself ever since I started getting tattooed, I wish I could do this, but I can't. Well, and I told myself it's better to try something and to learn that you actually can't do it than to kick yourself down before you've even tried. So my wife and I agreed that I would try, and if I was able to get an apprenticeship, that I would do it and give it my all. And if I couldn't do it, then I would stop crying and I would just keep going back to work and making sure the bills were paid. So that's what I did.
Wow. I mean, it's funny, right? Because it makes me think of a couple of things. One of the best pieces of advice that I was ever given was that it's better to regret the things that you have done and not the things that you haven't done, which
Absolutely.
I think is a big deal. And secondly, What you're talking about is almost, it's the inverse almost of what I talked about with both of my kids when they started tattooing. Because I've got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. My son's 30, my daughter's 24. And I made them both do a year of a regular job. You know, like I think my son worked in a pub called the Hungry Horse, where he was the horse. He had to dress up as a horse for kids' birthday parties. And my daughter worked for the great American institution McDonald's in the drive-thru. I made them work for a year doing that, and then the day they finished, I brought them to the studio and I said, look, right, that bullshit job will always be waiting for you. Any day that you want to go back, that bullshit job is waiting. So remember that you are here by the grace of God. And also remember that the people that you are tattooing have to do those kind of bullshit jobs for a week or a month or 2 months to pay for one day of your life. So don't ever lose sight of the fact that we are not the rock stars of this scene, no matter what anybody says to you. The rock stars of our scene are the clients.
The people paying bills, allowing us to every single day do this thing that we love. They are the ones that we have to thank for this. I mean, other than that, it would just be pointless. If we just go to work, tattoo ourselves, and don't make any money, like, we're doing it because of the clients.
Absolutely. One of the things that always bugged me about tattoo conventions, you know, they have the award ceremonies, they have competitions at tattoo conventions. And I always thought, I stood there watching them, because I didn't know that much about it when I started doing conventions. I didn't really understand how all that stuff worked. And my first observation of this as a new tattooer to the scene was, why do they give the samurai sword coated in gold to the tattooist and the client just gets an A4 bit of paper that's like a bullshit certificate to say that you were there? Surely that should be the other way around. But the warrior that was lay on a bed for 4 days getting a full leg piece to win this award has walked away with a crappy slip of paper, and yet the guy that did the tattooing, which is something that they do every single day, that's won an award given to them by their peers, has now been given a samurai sword or something. It just never made any sense to me. I always thought, like, surely the client is more important than the artist, right? Or equally as important.
And I think that part of the perspective of the industry is the same thing that you and I were discussing previously about how you don't see certain things in the industry because it's not in your industry. It's not in the circle of people that you surround yourself with. It's not in your friend group in tattooing. So when we hear these certain types of things happening, it doesn't necessarily affect us, but it is there. And I agree with you completely. I don't think the whole entire industry does not appreciate or value the clients, but I think the level of appreciation and over glorification of the artist for certain things, we wonder why people have egos. You know, we get samurai swords for things. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's brilliant, but yeah, I've always thought it was a weird inversion of who's important. And I guess, I mean, I got into tattooing just post the TV years. So, you know, Miami Ink had been huge, and London Ink and New York Ink and all, you know, every fucking show that ends in ink, you know. And so that rock star kind of tattooer thing was probably at its height when I opened my studio. And I think that I don't know if I think it's dangerous or detrimental, but I do think that in the modern era, we're maybe seeing the effects of telling a bunch of people that would love to be tattooists that when you become a tattooist, you become some sort of rock star superhero, when actually what you are is a guy that draws for a living. You know, that you're a commercial artist and that's what you do. And you're not necessarily that special, you know, and certainly you're not special without any clients. If you don't have any clients, that like you're not even an artist, you know, you're not drawing anything, you know.
And that's one of the things for me too, is I feel very strongly, and it's just in my personal opinion, that there's a difference between a tattoo artist and a tattooist. I like to think of myself as a tattooist because I just like doing tattoos. I mean, of course, there's things that I want to do more than others, but I'm just thankful every day that I get to do a tattoo and make money doing what I love. Now, a tattoo artist, I feel like, only does the tattoos that they want to do. And I think there's nothing wrong with that if you can afford to make a living doing that. But I personally feel like there is 2 different types of people who do tattoos. I think that there's tattooists and then there's tattoo artists. And I like to say that I'm a tattooist for that reason. I I
Yeah.
just want to do tattoos. I don't care what it is, as long as it's a good tattoo, I'm happy.
I've got a bunch of friends that do that. You know, whatever you put in front of them, they will make the best job that they possibly can of that piece of artwork for you. They don't make too many artistic decisions. They're quite happy to make tattoos, make the best job they possibly can. And I think that's one mindset. Mine is that I came into this with an art style already in place. Unlike a lot of tattooists, I didn't have to figure out what my style was going to be. I already knew what I was going to do the moment I could work out how the fuck a tattoo machine worked, you know?
Yeah.
And so once I'd kind of got past the, okay, this is how you do lining, this is how you do shading, this is how you pack colour, and, you know, the kind of basics, I knew where I was going to go. So for me, it's not that I'm not happy to do simple tattoos, because occasionally, you know, we have a walk-in artist. We wrote the walk-in guys at the shop and everybody takes a turn. And very occasionally, the walk-in guy that day is me. And so we have people walk in and they want a butterfly or a 5-pointed star. I can still knock you out a fucking great traditional butterfly or a 5-pointed star for you. You know, I mean, I'm not going to turn that down. If you want to walk in and I really want to get it, I really want to get a really good one, I'm like, I'm your guy. You know, I'll do that for you happily. And I switch the kind of art side of stuff off, and I just switch on the tradesman kind of idea of like, okay, that's what you want, I'm going to make the best thing. I've always equated it to the difference between being the guitar player in a band, playing your own songs, and the session guy that comes in that says, well, you need a good guitar solo in those 8 bars that really fits the song, and it sounds like this. Okay, I can play it in the style of jazz, or I can play it in the style of country, or I can play it in the style of rock and roll. Which one do you want? And I think that's kind of the difference. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. You know, I learned to play the guitar from session musicians, and they're some of the fucking greatest musicians I've ever met. And then I've seen people in bands who aren't great technicians, but they make beautiful music. You know what I mean? So I think it's a very different thing. You know,
it each is their own with that, and I think it does. It makes there's a lot of different ways to do a tattoo.
I mean, the only problem that I see with tattooing is that we seem intent on picking a side and saying, I'm doing this, so I'm better than you, or or I'm doing this and I'm better than you. I'm like, we're all in this together. We're all tattooists. We're all making our version of tattoos the way we want to make a living and the way it makes us happy. And you know, we should work more on being a community rather than going, well, that's those guys, but I'm not part of that. I'm with these guys, and it should just be like, look, we're all tattooed. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things that helped me with that, you know, is 20 years ago when I started turning up at tattoo conventions. I think it's about 20 years ago. I didn't really count because I didn't think it would be a particularly important date from when I started tattooing for the world of tattooing. I didn't think it was going to be something that anybody was going to want to put in a book at any time. So I never bothered counting, right? Because I'm not that egotistical. You know? But one of the funny things was, because of the style of work that I do, they you know, like in conventions, they like to sit all the black and grey guys together, and then they like to sit all the traditional guys together and all the colour realists together. And then there's this guy called Paul that does these weird, scribbly red and black tattoos that they're like, well, where the fuck do we put him? And so I used to just end up sat with dot work artists or colour realists, wherever there was a spot, really, you know. And so I've made friends in all the various genres because I like talking to people, right? And I'm like, it's tattooing, it's all the same. It's the same needles as mine. It's the same techniques. You're just doing it slightly differently. The outcome is what's different, you know? And because I have that eternal learner mentality, I'll watch anybody do a tattoo because there's things that you can learn from anyone, you know. And I think it's
always learn something in tattooing every single day. I mean, every day working in the shop, you can learn something. Even just watching videos online, there's so much information out there nowadays.
Oh, dude, one of my favourites is I'm trying to remember the name of the artist. He did a pink rose tutorial that I bought, and I will remember his name in a minute. I'm just going to try and Google it while we're chatting. Yeah. But he made a tutorial, and I probably watch that twice a year, you know, because it's such a brilliant way of explaining the the process. Let me just find this guy's name because I feel like a fucking idiot because I've watched it about 1,000 times. I think it's Phil Garcia that did it. Yeah, Phil Garcia. You know Phil Garcia?
No, not off the top of my head. I'll have to look.
So Phil's, pretty famous for his flowers, but the thing I like about it is I've watched lots of people do realism, and the way he approaches it almost like a traditional tattoo. So he starts with small round liners, and then small round shaders, and then moves up to mags. And it's a very, very traditionalist approach to realism. And of all the tutorials that I've watched, it's the one that really unlocked how to do realism in a way that my mindset and the way my tools, the tools in my hands.
Yeah, you just understood.
Yeah, I mean, and he has a great way of explaining it and not making it seem horrifically, like it can be quite intimidating at first if it's a style of art that you're not very switched on to. So something like colour realism, I think you either get it or you don't. And there was a few things with me that always made me a little bit uncomfortable. Like I felt like I'm not quite getting this thing, And then I watched this Phil Garcia tutorial, cost me like $60, well worth the money. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, man, that approach makes absolute sense to me. And so now I don't struggle with it at all. It's really improved my colour realism tattooing. It's made it work for me. And I think when I watch this, I'm probably like, it's probably 5 years ago now, so I'm probably 15 years in. And I'm like, you can still learn, right? It's if you shut your mind and go, oh, I've got it now. I don't need to learn anything else. This is how it is. And I think that closed mind idea is something that we've got to try and open our minds again. Because part of the reason for this podcast is that I have lots of conversations with artists that have been tattooing for 30 years, 30 minutes, 3 years, anywhere in between. And everybody's got an interesting point of view. And I think that, there's a lot of podcasts out there where you can see all the kind of named artists that you would expect to see there. But nobody really focuses on the working and the jobbing artists. And of course we want the legends to tell us, their experience of it. But also you want the kind of guy in the street that's doing it right now, that's in the trenches, if you like, Yeah,
it's the perspective is key. How we look at this industry and how we look at tattooing in a whole. For me, like I'd been working for 16, 17 years steady doing other jobs. So once I finally achieved the goal, which was to become a tattoo artist, to be doing this for a living, to make money, being happy. Once I achieved that goal, every single day of being a tattoo artist is the greatest day of work in my entire life.
There you go.
I've had an entire life of bad jobs, and even the worst day tattooing is still better than the worst day of something else. So that and that perspective, somebody comes in for a walk-in and they want some Pinterest tiny whatever, I don't care. I'm just glad that they came in. Those are the people who I'm like, cool, they'll get something tiny today, they'll have a good time, they'll come back and get something big next time. You never know.
I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but I've lost count of the amount of times that a girl's come in to get a small tattoo, and then within 2 weeks, her boyfriend or husband has booked in for a full sleeve. And she was there like to do a recon mission almost,
Absolutely. He was too scared to go in on his own, so he sends her in to check it out.
see if they're fucking dickheads, and does the place look nice? Do they seem okay? And I always think that those small tattoos or conversations about small tattoos, they tend to that tends to explode into really sometimes really good work. Why not? I've done it the other way around as well. I've put a full sleeve on a guy in 3 days, and his girlfriend had to sit and watch, and she was like, I feel really jealous because I don't get to leave with a tattoo. And I said, let me clean my station, reset, you decide what you want, whatever you want, you can have it for free, I'll throw it in with the sleeve. And she got and I've done that a few times, and people, well, who's ever sad about a free tattoo, right?
Absolutely. But even that level of appreciation and client appreciation, that's you're building such a strong relationship with the person that you do that for, that they're the people that continue to come back to you. They might not get tattooed every single day, but every time they get a tattoo, they'll come back to you because you've built that relationship with them. And that's what's important. It's the human interaction.
Yeah. And I think that as as we move into an era when there's so many more of us now, you know, even in the 20 years that I've been doing it, you know, there's must be like 100 times more tattooists than there were when I started. As that happens and the client has more choice, I think looking after clients and treating them like human beings and, you know, and all that sort of stuff that's becoming a paramount idea now. You know, I mean, I've sat in tattoo shops doing guest spots where they will do a round of tea and coffee for the tattooists and the clients don't get one. They make the clients go to the coffee shop over the road and buy it. And I'm like, what, you can't make somebody a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think when I first started, there were tattoo studios charging £5 per spray for Bactine.
Yeah.
Like really? I mean, I pour that shit in my wash bottle when I'm in the US. We can't use it in the UK, but when I'm in the US, I just fucking go to Walgreens and buy a couple of them and just pour them in my wash bottle.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, takes the edge off. Why, you know, and that just seems like penny pinching to me. And the amount of artists that I see worrying that their needles are £1.50 each. And I'm like, how much do you charge for your tattoo? You know, I'm not going to worry about putting 6 or 7 needles out. I mean, the client's paying me a fortune for a tattoo and they want a really good job. I'm going to give myself the best fucking tools.
Absolutely. How many times have you set up a needle or a cartridge and don't even use it? You know, so like you think that happens all the time. Like you think you're going to need one and you don't, and it's already open. So you just throw it away. So who cares? Like,
who cares? It is what it is.
How we do it.
I mean, those are just the cost of doing business to me. I look at it and go, these are the tools of the trade. Could they be made cheaper? Yeah, probably. You know, but we live in a world of capitalism and profit, and the market will stand what you're prepared to pay for it. So if somebody's prepared to pay $1,500 for a tattoo machine, guess what? All tattoo machines are going to be $1,500. It's the way it is. You know,
and that is one of the interesting thing about like tattooing from the old days, the previous times where if needles got too expensive, they would just make their own. Where most of the tattoo artists now would be like, oh, the needles are more expensive. I guess I'll have to pay the price. You know, where not having that skill set or that knowledge base, you don't know what to do. Some people don't even know how to put machines together. They don't know how to mix pigments. They'd be screwed if, you know, even if their iPad stopped working, they wouldn't even know how to draw on a piece of paper or with a transfer stencil.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I really pushed. I've taught, you know, my 2 kids and 2 other people to tattoo over the years. And that's something that I really push with them, because I think with what I do, that is the one kind of Achilles heel of what I do, is that realistically, without the laptop to do some of the digital effects that I do, that I then copy by hand, but those digital effects are quite complicated to make by hand. So I said to all my guys, listen, if you can, and the style supports it, make sure that you can do what you do with a biro and, you know, and a stick, and you'll be fine, you know, because you never know. So they all can freehand all of their work straight to the skin with a Sharpie. And I'm like, I think that's a good spot to be in, because it really is your artwork then. And it's funny because once they can do it, and they can get that stuff to stay on the skin long enough to get the lines in. I watch them all now, and they all do a lot more drawing onto the body than they bother with stencils. They'll stencil key elements if they, you know, if it's that dragon head's got to be exactly like that, they'll stencil it, but then they'll draw the body in or something like that. And I think it's really important. You know, my guys, you know, I get them to build. You know, we have like a fun little thing that we do every couple of years where we do a prison rig challenge, and I tell everybody, okay, you got to make a tattoo machine using only spare parts. So you're going to have to, and I don't tell anybody how it works. I'm like, and the loser gets tattooed by the winner, you know, with the machine you built. So you better hope it works, right? Because it gives them at least an understanding of a coil machine, even if you're never going to use one. Like for me, I don't use them. I haven't used them for a long time now. But all of the things that I look for in a rotary machine are based on my favourite coil machines. Yeah. Like, you know, so for me, it would my favourite coil machines were Mickey Sharp's machines that have a lot of very heavy springs in the machine. So there's not a lot of give in them at all. So my theory was, well, a rotary doesn't have a lot of give. I actually don't mind a tattoo machine without a lot of give. You know, these were fucking hammers, you know. Yeah. So I can just switch to that, and I don't want anything that's got too much give in it, you know, because I don't need it. I use my wrist for give and stuff like that, you know. But it's based on knowing about coil machines and struggling with them for years. I never got the hang of like tuning them and stuff. I suck at it. It's just something that just doesn't work for me. I don't know why I couldn't figure it out, you know. I mean, I've built fucking motorbikes and guitars and all sorts, but like this thing, I just couldn't work it out. Yeah. But it's something that I think is important, and even though I don't make my own needles, I've used a needle jig and thought, Jesus, this is the fucking hardest thing in the world. But I appreciate when I get a cartridge out of a blister pack and just snap it in and away I go. I'm tattooing it. I'm like, Jesus, that's better than soldering this shit together, you know.
I never had to do any needle making or anything. That was never part of my apprenticeship. I came up after that was already a thing of the past. Everyone that I've spoken with, every artist that I know who remembers doing it says, yeah, sometimes when you build a better mousetrap, you don't go back to the old one. Like, they're like, no, I mean, I know how to make needles, but I would never do it again because I hated doing it. Like, I'd just buy a box.
Yeah. But one of the things it does teach you is, like, I'm thinking particularly with things like mags, because with a mag, you used to have to lace through them with a razor blade, like long ways, to get them to some of them to sit up slightly above the ones below. So, like, I'm thinking, like, say, like a 9 mag, 5 on the bottom, 4 on the top. The 4 top ones, you would have to lace a razor blade through them and then lift them. That's if I was taught correctly. I may not have been taught to do this correctly, but that's how I was taught to do it. And the amount that you flare the distance between the mags, like now, I will adjust cartridges if I get a new brand of cartridge, which I don't do very often because I pretty much only use Cheyenne carts. But if I get them and I feel like they're too tight, then I will loosen them up and like flare them, and I'll take the front of the cartridge off and bend them down a little bit if I don't think they're riding the bottom of the cart like I want them to. Yeah. And they will stand it a little bit, not as much as a regular needle would, but that comes from, you know, making needles badly when I was a kid, because, you know, pretty much when I was a lot younger, well, you know, a long time before I had any thoughts of becoming a tattooist, I had friends who were tattooists, and so you just end up out of fascination going, well, what are you doing? And I get fascinated by shit I don't understand. I can't help it, you know, and I just wanted to know how it worked. But now my understanding of needles, I think, is slightly better, or what I prefer in needles is better, because I made, you know, a dozen shit needles that you'd never tattoo with. They probably fucking look like old forks by the time I'd finished with them, you know?
Yeah, but having that in-depth understanding of where you came from helps you understand where you're going. Yeah, so you can appreciate a fine-tuned needle because you've made bad ones. So you know the difference between the two. Yeah,
and I also think it's that that appreciation of, I'm not the first person here. I'm not the, you know, Paul Talbot superstar or anything like that invented tattooing. I am standing on the shoulders of giants from the history of tattooing, and every tattooist that came before me invented all of this stuff, and I'm benefiting from it. So that's why I have massive respect for those guys, because I can walk into a tattoo supply company, buy machines that will run forever without touching them, needles that are pre-made, that are perfect, and ink that's pre-dispersed. And all of that is because there was a bunch of people really early on that were absolute maniacs and real tinkerers that had to invent all this stuff. And that to me is really important for all of us to remember. You're not an island. You didn't just appear here fully formed. Everything that you're doing is off the back of these guys that were 150 years ago were doing things that, you know, they literally had to invent the path.
You look at the tattoo engraving machine by Samuel O'Reilly, and you think, man, even though it was the first of its kind, probably sucked. It was probably really difficult to use because it was prototype number one. You know, we look at some of these plug and play machines we have now, and they're so drastically different from even having the old electrical wall mounts that you'd have to use before there was the converters. I mean, now we have wireless Bluetooth machines where all of these things had to start from somewhere, you know. So the appreciation of tattoo history for me is one of the things that always got me so interested in it was American traditional history, and
Yeah.
then the history of it in general with England. I'm fascinated with European tattoo history, Japanese history. It's just such a fascinating, magical craft. But you're absolutely right when you say we are standing on the shoulders of giants. None of us have done anything that hasn't already been done in tattooing. It's all because someone else came before us.
All that we can hope to do. I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and you brought something up that I thought was interesting about, tattooing will give you what you put into tattooing. What you get out of tattooing is exactly equal to what you put in. And I think that, wherever possible, a good friend of mine, Lal Hardy, put it very succinctly with me. He said, like, if you've taken fruit from the tree that is called tattooing, then you should make sure you water the tattoo tree before you leave.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I think that's a very good mindset to me, So fortunately, throughout, because I came at this from, I was a graphic designer for years before I did this. So I live in a very digital world. When I got here, one of the things that was a big bugbear for me was stencil printers, because there was only the old Thermofax machine, or you made them by hand. So I found a thermal printer made by a company called Brother and just bought one, thinking that all the proper tattooists would probably know what it was, and I was just late to the game, right? And I turned up at a tattoo convention only to find that nobody had thought to plug a USB printer into a laptop and make stencils that way. And so now, it's not really a claim to fame, but one of the things that I'm quite proud of is that all of these little thermal printers that people are using to make stencils, that industry only really exists because I went, well, I need to print something off my laptop onto a piece of thermal paper, and I had to just do what every tattooist before me had done. It's like, well, if it doesn't exist, then see if you can make it exist.
Absolutely. Yeah, you adapted a resource or a tool from a previous job and said, well, why wouldn't this work for this too?
And when you look at the history of tattooing, even the tattoo machine that we know and love was not intended to be a tattoo machine. And almost everything in tattooing has been taken from another industry, and we've just perverted it to do our job. I mean, I can't find out from anybody, and if there's anybody listening that has any idea of how this happened, I would love to know, so get in touch and let me know. But at some point, we go from the Samuel O'Reilly idea to what we consider to be the modern coil machine, which is actually a Victorian doorbell. Mm-hmm. And I've seen them, and it's like you take a Victorian doorbell and you turn it over, and there's a coil machine inside, and the bit that drives the needle is the bit that makes the ding-a-ling-a-ling sound. Yeah. And somebody thought, well, if I just cut the bell bit off, I could use that for tattooing. And I'd love to know who came up with that idea first, but I can't find anybody because it wouldn't have been written down because nobody thought it was important. So there's no sort of, oh, well, that was the first guy. I think there was, and like with a lot of things in tattooing, there was probably 5 or 6 people thinking down the same route at the same time,
Absolutely.
Because from my understanding of it, I think slightly prior to Samuel O'Reilly patenting the Edison pen, which is as a tattoo machine, I think some people before that experimented with a thing called a dental plugger. Now, I've seen a picture of one, but I've no idea how the fuck that would work in tattooing. But apparently this was something that everybody was thinking about, is maybe we could use this new thing called electricity to drive tattoo machines. And Samuel O'Reilly was just the person that went, I found something that's perfect,
Yeah, there are people, someone would have stumbled upon it had it not been him. Who knows how soon, but yeah, he definitely was just a little quicker to the game than everybody else, but they were going to find it. I mean, it's not like people hadn't already been doing tattooing for thousands of years prior to the invention of the electric tattoo machine. I mean, it's such an old trade. Even if they never invented it, we'd still be poking them in by hand, I'm sure.
Yeah. We'd have just figured out how to get quicker at it, wouldn't we? It is what it is. But I think for anybody listening who's 3 years back from where you are, and thinking about getting into it and thinking they don't need to understand the history of tattooing, my argument would be there's no way you can know where we're going if you don't know where we've been.
100%. I couldn't agree with you anymore. The history, one of the things that I found myself doing during my apprenticeship when I was explaining I had my cubicle job, where I was sitting in a cubicle for 10 hours a day, I decided that I would just read the entire tattoo museum website's entire history of the Encyclopedia of Tattooing. And I would just get as much information on the clock as possible while I was at work doing spreadsheets. And I would just be learning about, anything from Samuel O'Reilly to the Bowery to just different types of the Maori people tattooing in Hawaii, illegal tattooing, just everything that the websites have to offer, and just trying to get as much books and autobiographies that I can get and flash books about artists. Anything that I can get. I mean, I haven't spent any money that hasn't been related to tattooing in 3 years. I
Yeah.
don't buy anything that isn't either for me that's tattoo related or a product that I can use for tattooing. It's all reference material. It's all supplies. I live and breathe tattooing now, and I couldn't be happier. My wife hates
Yeah, man.
it. I couldn't be happier.
I mean, I think living and breathing anything is good for you. You just don't, and there's a period of time when you're so in it, and I think you'll do that for the first 5 years. I think everybody does that for the first 5 years. You're so in it that there is nothing else, and it's the only way really to learn tattooing. I think is to completely immerse yourself in it and just get find that thing that you love and just let it destroy you, type of thing.
Absolutely.
And then after a while, once you find yourself like, okay, I'm making nice tattoos and things are going well, and you've learnt all that history, you start sort of building, I think, a worldview. Then you go, okay, so where's tattooing now, and where could it be, and I think that's having a good understanding of history and knowing that for as long as they've been tattoo artists, they've all been moaning at each other, and I'm pretty certain I could dig up some articles written, I think probably even almost before or around the invention of the electric tattoo machine, where people are already saying, oh, there's too many tattooists and the supply companies are crazy and all that sort of stuff. And that to me was like, look, it's us. We're never going to stop complaining about this stuff. There's always going to be too many more people coming into the industry. Our shit is always going to be too much more expensive than we want it to be, because even in the time that I've been doing it, I can go back to magazines from the early 2000s and show you almost exactly the same thing that I've written as a column, and then gone, shit, man, I'm just saying the same shit that people have been saying for 20 years. And then for me, that's when I realised that, I thought, well, maybe I really ought to put a bit more time into this and think about, okay, well, look, we've been saying that for long enough, so that's probably not going to change, because that's just us, right? We're a bunch of maverick pirate head cases, and that's always going to be the way it is. But can we go forward in another way? And that,
absolutely. And I think that level of positive mental attitude, having a just a perspective of, like we were saying, leaving the place better off than it was when you got there. Like, give back to tattooing. This is how we make money. This is how we make a living. It's been around for a really long time. A lot of people have put blood, sweat, and tears to get to where they are nowadays.
Yeah,
so
man.
It's just giving it every day, giving it your all, and just trying. There's nothing wrong with that. Just putting in hard work and effort.
With it, I think I've said this on other podcasts, but like the way I look at it is that as this era of tattooists, we are the current custodians. We won't be the custodians forever, but it's our job right now to make sure, like you said, that when we leave this industry, I'd like to leave tattooing a little bit better than when I got into it. I'd like to go, well, look, we did affect some change. You can't change everything overnight. It takes a while for things to move, but if you can, it's like an American football game. I know you just call it football, but it's American football where I come from, and it's move the ball your 10 yards, right? It's like, so there you go, that's your career. Have you moved the ball 10 yards forward? Yeah, okay, so you did okay. You're all good, karmically, you've took off the tree, you've put back on, it's in a better place than it started, and there you go. And I think that's all we can really hope for. Like, I can't revolutionise the industry, none of us can, but together we could probably make the industry 10% better, and if you could do that every generation, that's fine.
Well, I even look at, let alone your work and your clients that you've been able to touch throughout your career, but even just your podcast, for example, the internet giving you an opportunity to be able to reach people on a level, and your conversations that you've had with your guests on your previous episode, I've enjoyed so greatly. Like, they've touched me, so it's made a
Thank you,
difference
man.
in the industry. So even if it's just me, for example, you
Yeah.
still are leaving tattooing better off than it was when you got here. You know,
And
even if
that's
it's
all we can. It's
your
all we
artist.
can hope to do. It's all we can hope to do is just leave it better. I mean, I'm glad you like them. I think there's, I mean, given that this is realistically just my hobby, and I just like chatting with tattooists from all over the world, and I just do this for fun. It's not
Yeah,
any kind of. There isn't a
a
plan.
real
I wish there
job.
was. I'm sure Karen would prefer us to have a bit of a plan, but I said, it's why none of it is monetized and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need anybody's money. It costs me $500 a year to do all of the things that I need to do with the podcast. So I'm like, I don't need that. I can write that off against my tax bill. So I just do it for free. Because then everybody can enjoy it for nothing, right? And I don't think I'm saying anything spectacular.
Yeah, but
You know?
even with that, I mean, podcast, the process of making a podcast, what goes into it, the interviews, the editing, all those things, you have given yourself another full-time job, and you've said, "Oh, I don't need to get paid." So I understand that, and I appreciate it. Whenever I listen to a podcast, I know that took a lot of time and effort. Someone had to make that. You know, there was dedication that went into that podcast. But I've found that all of yours, the conversations have all been so good. I've enjoyed your podcast greatly. It's real and it's positive.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the that I really like is the positivity about it. It's more like problem solving than complaining. And I've always been big on if you're not part of the solution, then you are part of the problem. And I don't
Exactly.
talking about an issue does anything. I think deciding on fixing problems is the most successful way of moving forward.
Do you know what I think did that for me? Right. So, like you, I had I had a regular job for. I've only ever had one proper job. I worked for 10 years when my kids were younger, because it turns out that children can't live on coffee and cigarettes like musicians do, and you actually have to feed them. So I was like, oh shit, I better get a job. So I worked in advertising for a publishing company. So I worked for a local newspaper group near to me, and one of the things that used to frustrate the hell out of me was that to do anything, we'd have to have 15 fucking meetings to talk about the thing that we might potentially do. And I would sit there going, in the time that it's taken us to have this meeting, I could have implemented the thing. We could have seen whether it worked or not and reverted back to the old way of doing it if it failed. Wouldn't it be better to just rapid prototype this stuff and just try it? Well, we'll have to have a meeting about whether we do that. And it was, to me, it wasn't about solutions. It was about endlessly talking about things and not actually fixing the problem. And to me, it's like, if you don't, I'm a solutions person. I'm not interested in, if I'm moaning about the same thing 3 times in a month, the 4th week of that month, that problem's going to get fixed, because I'm like, no, I can't have that. It's how I approach tattooing. Is like every part of my technique or every part of my process, if there's any friction that causes me problems, I have to eradicate that step. I've got to remove the friction in that step. So like I was telling you about the stencil machine, getting the artwork from the computer onto a piece of paper that I could then stick onto the client and turn into a stencil, and then was a problem for me because I'd have to hand draw it, right? And it's a pain in the arse hand tracing digital stencils. It's a fucking drag, man. And so that's what led me to go, there must be such a thing as a thermal printer. And I think the first one that I got was a converted fax machine. And that's what made me think, okay, well, I'm going to see if fax technology, does that still exist in 2010 or 2009 or something? Let's see if it still exists, and I'll see if I can do it. And that's where that's born out of. I think and that's what I do with the podcast is I'm here not to say the same old shit over and over again. I want to talk to different people from different walks of life, different stages of the journey of tattooing, and find out what their perspective is on it,
Absolutely.
Because you can learn from everyone. And I think everybody's voice should be part of that conversation. The problem with social media and podcasts is it's only, because I guess it's a commercial thing for a lot of people, they only want to put the guy on the thumbnail that's going to make you click on it or something. Well, I don't have that problem. I'm like, I just have interesting conversations with interesting people.
Absolutely. You don't have any constraints to have a popular person you're not trying to get. You just want to talk to people who are interesting. Yeah, but that is, it's one of the fascinating things with the ability to talk to different people, the different perspectives. Like for me, for example, I work with a lot of artists in my shop that have many years, like 20 plus years of tattooing experience. So
Yeah.
whenever we talk about things and they say, "Oh, well, you should have seen what tattooing was like 15 years ago," or "You don't remember, you don't know, it was great 10 years ago." And I'm like, "But you're right, I don't know any different." And it's
No.
great to me how it is. My perspective is this is the greatest job in the entire world. I couldn't imagine it being cooler than it already is, and everybody around me says, "Oh, well, it used to be." Well, my perspective is it's still the coolest job ever, you know?
It
I don't
is, but
think
here's what's changed. So for those guys that are in the shop, if I was sitting there, I'd be the guy going, "No, see what the problem was. This has always been the coolest fucking job in the world. And making tattoos is cool, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're not cool, right? And what happened 20 years ago is they tried to make tattooists into these like cool rock star people when we're fucking idiots that draw. We enjoy drawing, right? We're not, we're not them kind of people, right?
We don't all walk around looking like Dave Navarro. Like that's not.
I mean, come on, man. Like you work in a tattoo studio. Most of the days when you walk in the studio, it looks like everybody got dressed in the fucking dark, right? I mean, who thinks they're cool if they're wearing a pair of Crocs? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, or you have like a headlamp on to do your tattoos. I'm like, come on, you're not a rock star. You're
not a fucking rock star.
Yeah.
Funniest thing I've ever done with one of those headlamp things, right? Because I used to wear them at conventions, right? And if you wear them for a long time, you forget you've got them on. Yeah. So I went to the bathroom at the convention, and I'm stood there at a urinal taking a piss, and the guy stood next to me and like looking at me like, "You think a lot of yourself. You've given your dick its own light show." And I'd completely forgotten that I was wearing it. I looked like an absolute fucking idiot.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, we're super cool, right? I mean, like we're the.
I mean, if you think about most tattooers, like we can't get up at a decent time. We can't go to bed at a decent time. We eat terrible food. We have advice. We're all conspiracy theorists. Like, we're not cool people. We're the type of people that, like, of course,
we're fucking nerds. We're art nerds. I mean, come on, man. I mean,
this is why we're doing this.
You talk to your average old school tattooist or old school tattoo fan, and they can fucking name every old school tattooist from one part of the world in alphabetical order off the top of their heads. Like, that's like some Dungeons and Dragons shit to me. I'm like, we ain't cool people, but our job is really cool, and the tattoos are really cool. And all that's happened is we forgot that. And it's all about us, and it's not about the artwork. And I'm like, it's not about me at all. The artwork is what's famous. You know what I mean? Any piece of artwork that I've done is the thing that people have responded to. They don't give a fuck what my haircut's like or what shoes I wear. No one cares. They care about the shit that I draw. And I'm over the moon about that because that's, to me, is the absolute perfect place to be.
But see, that level of positivity and that level of energy is very contagious. And I can see it in tattooing. And the more I've been looking for it, the more I see it, where there's positive resurgence of people trying to take back creativity and the passion and just rekindling that flame, It's hard for me because, like I said, I've only been tattooing for 3 years, so I'm so new at it. I'm still in the honeymoon phase, but I have a hard time sometimes looking at people and wondering how you ever could fall out of love with something like tattooing. And
do you know what? I think actually the pressure of being a cool rock star guy that's got to behave a certain way and have this lifestyle, I actually think that's why people fall out of the tattooing, because it's that kind of thing is just exhausting, having to, pretend to be someone else. I'm really happy to just be an art nerd and, go, look, I love art. I love walking around galleries and museums. That's probably not cool to a lot of people, but it's my favourite thing in the world to do. Every time we go and do a convention, we try and find art galleries that we can go and visit and look at stuff. And, there's no such thing as bad art. I'll just look at art from everywhere and just go, well, okay, I'm not particularly keen on that stuff, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I don't like it,
Yeah, just because something's not for you doesn't mean it's not for someone else.
No, exactly. It's, one man's meat is another man's poison and all that.
Yeah.
I think like you just touched on it actually, because so your apprenticeship is quite recent for you, and so what is the modern apprenticeship like then? Having given that you've just experienced one, how's that been, and how do you? Is there anything that you would change about that? What's your perspective on modern apprenticeships?
So modern apprenticeships for me, I've heard before I became a tattoo artist, I'd heard so many stories of what other actual tattoo artist apprenticeships were like. And I learned that there's an idea of what an apprenticeship should be, and no one has ever had that idea happen. Every tattoo artist says it should be like this, you should be doing this, and this. And nobody has ever had that. So my apprenticeship was a decent apprenticeship. I think it helped that I'm already a full-grown adult. I wasn't some 19-year-old kid who'd never had a job and didn't know how to work. So when I'd been getting tattooed by my mentor for a while, and I ended up working with him, and he ended up teaching me how to tattoo, it all clicked, and everything seemed like I was exactly where I was supposed to be at the right time. I mean, when I got my apprenticeship in tattooing I only went to one shop.
Cool.
I had made the decision that this would be the place I'm going to try and get a job, and I made it happen. So everything worked. And does it seem like getting an apprenticeship would be easier than it was? I don't know. I don't think anybody has the same apprenticeship story. My mentor didn't really haze me. He was very focused on just teaching me and showing me how to run a tattoo shop and how to be a tattoo artist and how to do all the ins and outs. And I worked with him for a while until he ended up selling his business and moving, and I ended up getting a job in Hanover. That's where I work now. And I've been here for almost 2 years with Gypsy Skull and Brian, and I couldn't be happier. It's exactly what I needed in life, was to just switch. I was so miserable I was going to die. I mean, like my entire life, I felt like every day I'd wake up and it just seemed pointless because I wasn't happy. And now I am. I get to draw and hang out, and the greatest place in the world is a tattoo shop. And I get to hang out here
man.
5 to 6 days a week if I want.
What's the one thing in your tattoo shop that always causes the biggest arguments? Because I think I've got a theory about this. I'm hoping you're going to answer correctly. If the guys are arguing passionately about something, what is the one thing in the tattoo shop that normally starts that going?
Ooh.
Because I'll tell you, for us, it's the music, the choice of music.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that we ever. Well, it's normally me that leads the charge on it, because I've got a pretty wide taste in music. I worked in the music business professionally, and so when somebody starts playing fucking Nickelback records in my studio, I'm offended by it. I'm like, how dare you?
Like, do you not know there is good music? Why would you play that? Yeah, music isn't. We all have our own little workstation, so the music isn't really ever the issue. I'd say probably the biggest issue would be who's going to get the phone. Phone, or if sometimes there's a good debates about like rotaries versus coil machines, and like that kind of technique, the back and forth technique of to draw or to use AI, as your reference. Those are the big things. The music for us isn't. Luckily, that
not so much of a big thing.
Real problem. I'd say it's probably mostly just like the debate between rotary over coil or AI or not.
Yeah. I mean, that whole rotary coil debate, I always think, like, just use what you're most comfortable with. If you're more comfortable with a coil machine, then carry on. Then, like, who cares? It's no big deal.
I know how to use both of them. I prefer using coil machines over my rotary machines, but I use my rotary machines for certain types of tattoos, depending on what I'm doing or where it is on the body. Like you're doing a neck tattoo or something behind somebody's ear. Why wouldn't you use a pen? Like, it's so much easier try and have like a bulky coil machine back behind somebody's ear, let alone the noise of you running a coil machine next to somebody's ear when you could just
Yeah,
do
man.
it with a rotary. Like, I don't know,
And
different.
also, I mean, like for me, I fucked up my wrists pretty good, falling off skateboards and motorbikes when I was a kid,
Yeah.
you know. And so for me, anything that gets the weight off my hand for 6 hours a day, I'm like, the moment the Cheyenne Spirit came out, I was like, I'm all over that. That'll work for me. And the
Yeah.
moment I picked one of those up, I was like, I'm not going back to coil machines. Although my son, who's 30, has been to the studio recently, and he was like, Dad, where's all those coil machines of yours? I'm like, they're in a fucking box in the storeroom. And he was like, can I take them? I was like, yeah, just fire them up, man. And so my kids sat there like these family heirlooms, and like my daughter Beth picked 2 out that she wanted to keep. Said, I
Yeah.
just want to keep those. I remember Dad using them. And then my son was like, well, I'm going to take these ones because he wants to use coil machines because he thinks he'll get a better a feel out of it. And so I'll be interested because he'll be coming at it the opposite way. Like he started using rotaries and has
Yeah.
always felt like coil machines would suit him better. And I said to him, look, man, they might suit you much better. I mean, I know people that get amazing results with coil machines. You know, they're fantastic bits of kit. They're just heavy and you have to enjoy tuning them all the time. Personally, I don't enjoy either of those things. But if you do, I don't see what the big deal is. They both exist. They both will always exist. They're not going anywhere. So use both, use one, use the other. Do you?
Yeah.
You know,
As
do you know
long
what I
as
mean?
you get desired results, the tool is
Yeah.
kind of like, well, does it matter if it was a rotary or coil or if it's plugged in or if it's wireless? I mean, if the tattoo is good and the client's happy, that's all that matters.
Yeah, the line's cool. Or is the shading the way you want the shading to look? Whether you're looking for peppered shading or smooth shading, is the colour saturated? It doesn't matter what machine you did it with, you know? It's like you
Yeah.
just do it with the machine that suits you. That's, you know, to me, I mean, the only thing that I would say is a shop full of coil machines. Fuck, man, that is a noisy ass place.
It is. It is.
You can't hear yourself think. No wonder you don't argue about the music. You can't hear it.
Hear the music. Yeah. In my shop, we're split right now where there's 4 of us at this location where I'm at, and the 2 use rotaries and they work upstairs, and me and the other guy on the first floor are right across from each other, and we both use coils all day. So we're just buzzing constantly. Yep.
I still miss that though. I often think like I would pipe that into the studio, just quiet on a speaker somewhere, just have it. Just that sound of needles going. I think it might be
the sound of making money. That's
you know.
That's what Marvin Mouskowitz said. Said that's the sound of making money. Sound of a coil machine.
Yeah, somebody said to me, I think they were quoting somebody that like you should be able to hear the tattoo machines running from the sidewalk when you walk past the studio, and that's how you advertise. Is the sound of the machines running? You can hear it from the sidewalk, and I'm like, man, that's fucking loud, you know.
Yeah, that's fun.
So talking about perspectives, right? So you're newer into the industry. What are your thoughts walking into the industry? Now, did you think it was a bunch of arrogant rock star morons, or you know what was your take on it?
You know, I did think that the level of humility or people just being humble. I think it's hard because if you're posting things that you do on social media and you have thousands of people that follow you and thousands of people that like your work and comment that you're the best, you're the greatest, eventually it's very easy that you could fall into thinking that you actually are the best and the greatest. And even if it's only to your however many thousand followers, you still have to walk around thinking and trying to stay humble. And I do see there is a level of tattooing that I could live without, and that is the artists that do not stay humble, that do not remember where we came from, do not remember that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. I can live without that, but those types of people are assholes in life. They're in every profession, you know, so I've found that my perspective of what I wanted from tattooing, I'm finding it. I'm finding exactly what I wanted to get out of tattooing. The people that I'm surrounding myself with in the industry, the artwork that I'm getting to do, my clients, my perspective is positive. I'm very happy with the world that we live in tattooing. I find that the people who I get to tattoo love their tattoos. They are just passionate about the artwork and getting tattooed, and it means something so special to them. And that level of transformation is just such a magical thing. Tattooing is, in my opinion, such a real, true form of magic because you can take an idea, be it the artist or the clients, and create something that then transforms the client's skin for the rest of their life. And they will always look at themselves differently and have strength or courage or just happiness from their tattoo, whatever it brings them. That's magic, to take something that didn't exist and to create that feeling for a human being. It's a blessing to be able to be a tattoo artist.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're finding is, I've told my guys in the shop when I was teaching them that light attracts light. So you will, if you're of a certain mindset, then you will be surrounded by that. So if you're a very poisonous, negative person, you'll be surrounded by positive, negative tattooists. If you're a very positive person, you'll find yourself surrounded by positive, forward-thinking tattooists. And I think it really, again, it comes back to that. You'll get out what you put in. So I try and put nothing but positivity into the world of tattooing, and I get nothing but positive experiences in the world of tattooing, where I come away from convention weekends having talks myself hoarse with my friends, just laughing and joking and just having great art talks,
Yeah, just that connection. And I mean, like I've said it, with tattooing, it really has kind of restored my faith in humanity. Not completely, but a lot of it has been restored. Where I get to have such personal, intimate conversations and get to meet everyday people and talk to them in ways that I now believe that we're not as screwed or as damned as I once thought. Like when I had a job where I just worked in a cubicle and I was working on a computer 50 hours a week, and I'd go home and go to sleep and do it all over again, I didn't get any real human interaction where I wasn't talking to people and connecting. And it just seemed so miserable and bleak, like existence seemed so hopeless. But tattooing, as like you said with the light, it just pursues good things. Like anytime I find myself in tattooing being positive and pushing towards a good goal, I achieve it. So it's definitely a blessing.
And you're free. I think that's what you're feeling is that, when you're a wage slave, I don't know if that's a phrase that you use in America, but like we use that here. When you're, working, one of those kind of jobs, it's we refer to that as being a wage slave. You are a slave to the wages. You're only there because you need to get paid. And that's, and tattooing is a version of freedom for me. And, freedom isn't money. Freedom is the ability to decide whether I'm going to work today or not. Like what time do I want to go to work? What am I going to do? That kind of stuff. I now am the captain of my own ship. I can set the hours that I want to work. If I want to work 4 days a week, I can work 4 days a week instead of 5, all that sort of stuff, And I think that in its essence, particularly for an American, I think because you're much more libertarian than us socialist Europeans, but I think that that's a very natural place to be, is like this idea of you are free to it's in your constitution, you're free to pursue happiness. It's enshrined in the constitution, the pursuit of happiness, you know what I mean? And there's a very similar phrase in the English constitution, it's phrased slightly differently, but it's essentially the freedom to pursue happiness. And, that's the American dream, right, is to be that. You didn't sign up to be a fucking robot in a cubicle doing this shit for some billionaire, who doesn't give a shit about you. You signed up to do what Americans have always done. It's about that. I think that's probably why it resonates with you. I mean, it resonates with me, and I'm from what is soon to become the Republic of England, because it seems to be that they want to drive the UK certainly in a surveillance way. They want to drive it in the way of similar to China, where they make us carry digital IDs and cameras, track our faces, and tell the government where we are every minute of the day.
And your footprint, how much carbon emission your sandwich cost you.
Dude, I could give them that information for the next 10 years. I'll be in the studio eating a tuna sandwich, just add them up. Fuck me. Like, I'm a tattooist. I don't go anywhere. I go to work.
Yeah.
You
Cigarettes,
know,
coffee, tuna sandwich, done. That's it.
that'll
Yeah.
do. You know, that'll do, mate. But no,
Yeah.
it's when you were talking about, you know, the idea on social media of people, we use the term blowing smoke up your ass and telling you how great you are. The way I figured out a way around it, and it's the way I try and explain it to the guys, is that when I'm criticised on social media, you know, and it happens occasionally where people go, "I think that's a piece of shit, that's terrible," and blah blah blah. I will write that comment off by going, "Well, you're not a tattooist. You're somebody looking at it. It's not to your taste. I don't have to listen to your opinion." And if I'm not going to listen to that person's opinion, then I make it, because it has to be equal. I don't listen to anybody's good opinion about me either. Because I write off the bad opinions, I also write off all the good opinions, so I don't pay attention to any of it.
Yeah.
Because the same argument is true for somebody telling me that I'm the best tattooist in the world as the person who tells me I'm the worst tattooist in the world. So if you ignore one, you have to ignore the other. You can't cherry pick. So I just tell all my guys, it's nice if people are nice to you, but it doesn't mean anything. You can't go and take that to your bank manager and build a loan off the back of the fact that Steve from Swindon, who's a plumber, said you're the best tattooist in the world. And it's just understanding that it's the internet, and people like to be, you know, they like to say nice things when they see something cool, but at the same time, you know, you can't suddenly go, well, that obviously that means I am the best tattooist in the world. 4 people said it on my Instagram this week. Yeah. I must be the best. And I tell people all the time, I'm not sure if I'm even, let alone best tattooist in the world, I'm not sure I'm the best tattooist in my shop.
Yeah. On top of that, more so, I just think the internet's not actually real. I mean, like, we use it every day, but the internet's not a real thing. You know?
Can you imagine if the internet was a real country that you could visit?
Yeah,
it would be fucking horrible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no one would want to go there. You would just instantly get like STDs as soon as you show up. You know, disgusting.
Yeah, it's just the worst place. You just wouldn't visit, especially if there was a country called Twitter. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's fucking hell. I can't imagine what that country would be like. It would be terrible. What's your approach to social media then? Do you have a, you know, because you've just done your apprenticeship, but like you say, you're a bit older. Actually, at 37, that's about when I started tattooing. You know, properly. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with bikers and rock and rollers and musicians and all that sort of stuff. So tattooing was always around what I did. But I never did anything with it until way, way later when I saw the work of, say, Noon or Jeff Palumbo or somebody like that, who are big heroes of mine. And I went, fuck, you can make tattoos that look like that? Shit, I want to be a tattooist now. And so you're at the kind of age that I went, yeah, I want to be a tattooist. This would be fucking cool. So I just wonder what, you know, and obviously when I was 37, you know, the things like social media were in their infancy. I think we were in the MySpace years for the first few years of me being a tattooist, and then it switched over to this new thing called Facebook. So I've my whole career has had social media, you know, happening around it, and it being new and amazing and shiny and beautiful and free, and now it's horrible and capitalistic and full of advertising. So I hate it. You know, I use it as little as possible. What's your take on it? Because, you know, you've got to deal with this version of social media. So
my take is, so I don't like social networking. I don't like social media. I think that largely things like Facebook and Instagram are very unsocial platforms. I think for marketing for our industry, though, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter or TikTok, they can all be very useful tools, the same way AI can be a useful tool if you choose to use it to your benefit. So I try and utilize my social media. I try and be as present on it as possible. Sometimes it just feels like a burden. And I know I'm not the only person who hates social media in this industry. As long as I try and stay posting a story or a post of a picture or a reel or something a couple times a week, it's just hard to stay on top of it every single day. I know that that's what the algorithm looks for, but it's physically draining. It's emotionally draining to try and engage with the internet constantly when you're like, well, shouldn't I be focused on my artwork so my client gets a good tattoo? And instead, I'm worried about how to post a picture that I took 4 hours ago. And I'm like, I should really be doing other stuff with my time. So social media is hard. It's a blessing and a curse because it has benefited me. I have gotten clients from it. But I've also lost time that I don't think I'll ever see again.
Yeah, I mean, I tried an experiment this year with social media. So we've spent because from the pandemic when I didn't post hardly anything for a year because I didn't do a tattoo for nearly a year. So, and it didn't change my business at all.
Yeah.
So that started me thinking, given that I worked in marketing, that started me wondering about, I know the algorithm wants me to do this, but is that for the benefit of Instagram or for the benefit of me? And like, I don't want to work for Instagram. All right. So the first 6 months of this year, I set up a posting schedule and I stuck to it. And it was, I posted 3 times a week, absolutely every single week for 6 months. And for the next 6 months of the year, we've been posting whenever I've got something interesting to talk about, or I've done a tattoo that I think is really cool, or I've remembered to photograph stuff, which is another thing that I tend to do as well, is I wave people off and go, shit, I didn't take a photograph. So I do it all the time. And I've got to get into the habit of I'm going to start getting Karen to stop them at the door and make them get a tattoo, or stop me before I wrap them up or something. But what I've noticed is there is no difference in my business posting or not posting. So now I'm kind of the opinion that I don't think, everybody talks about, my feed is dying and there's no engagement. I think it's because the social media is coming to a big change point where it's going to have to shift. I think I think the pandemic has accelerated it. I think the TikTok effect has accelerated it even further. And I think people are actually just more interested in going outside and doing stuff in real life these days. I think they've rediscovered, after 5 years, they've gone, there's this place called Outside where we can meet up in person and have live conversations without having to record them and all that sort of stuff, In
real life. Yeah, it sounds, let's try that. Put the cell phone down, the tablet.
Well, I've been arguing with people that I think the next stage of that for the world of tattooing is that conventions are going to change. We've had the era of the big super conventions and, these, 7 million artists in a room and it's over 19 fucking halls and there's, all that sort of stuff. And it's this big circus. I actually think that we're going to see more smaller educational events that maybe don't even include any actual tattooing beyond seminars, and everybody getting together and doing almost like art retreat stuff, like the Paradise Tattoo Gathering that happens in Jiminy Peak, which is one of the first ones that I visited, Gabe's convention. And that's one that I visited where I didn't really know what it was, and I got invited to go there and I turned up and was like, wow, this is really different. I really like this. I'm a bit mistrusting of hippies, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of tree huggers, but they all seemed perfectly lovely when I was there. So I was like, maybe I've been a bit harsh on hippies, but it's an old punk thing, And
I don't know. I wouldn't second guess yourself.
Always, never quite sure, that amount of lentils can't be good for anybody.
Yeah.
But I think where we'll start seeing conventions now is I think they're going to start getting smaller, that they're going to be much more intimate, much more about art retreats. Maybe we'll get, there'll be a coil tattoo machine convention where guys get together to swap tuning tips and body frame building, the people that are really into those things, And I think that because that's going to be a reflection of us returning to tattoo community.
Correct.
Because I think that's one of the problems is that you can be part of what you think is a tattoo community online that of all people that never met. And I think that we're starting to feel, or it's starting to feel like everybody suddenly wants to start getting together again. And, but I think the format of the conventions at the moment doesn't suit the visitors or the artists because it's all about big show promotion, all of this, big that, big everything, and I actually think tattooing, because that's the hangover from the rock star years, right? I think that tattooing it needs to be in little nerdy spaces where, because it's going to be more suitable because that's who we are, we're art nerds. So, and I'm waiting to see. I'm seeing a few here and there around the world where they're starting to just sort of move, and I'm like, I think that's where we're going next. You know,
I've noticed a lot of those too. A lot more grassroots conventions popping up.
that's the
A lot of
stuff.
private invite only. A lot of machine building seminars, different events where, like with what you were talking about with Paradise. But I think it's even more so from your last podcast. It's the same thing that you were speaking about with like tattoo schools and everything. If and regulations of tattooing, especially in Europe, that if tattoo artists don't start taking the lead and saying, well, we want to see this change, if we as tattoo artists don't start implementing these changes and speaking up about what we want, then someone will make the decisions for us and we won't have them. So it's the same thing where if we don't like going to these giant 50,000 people tattoo conventions, well, if we know 10 really good artists that we all want to have a private convention, there's no reason that we can't rent a hall and have our own convention, but that level of starting things, saying, I think there's a problem and we need to start trying new things. I see it too. I see that people are trying things. They're stepping outside of the norm and they're trying to invent things a little bit more natural.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been talking with a couple of friends about doing it. I'm very fortunate that I live quite near to a lake, and the lake has got a boathouse on it that is controlled by the local council. And if you put on an event that is considered to be for the benefit of the local community, I think that they'll rent you the hall basically for free,
Nice.
Or close to it. So I've been talking about, can we do a charity thing where on maybe everybody tattoos on Sunday for a prize, and the judging is done by the guys that run the charity, and nobody makes any money. All of the money goes into a charity pot, but somebody walks away with like some kind of trophy for fun. You know what I mean? But also on the Friday and the Saturday, have nothing. All those guys that are there to do that could all be doing seminars in breakout rooms and giving talks and stuff like that. Pretty much like Paradise, but much smaller. You know what I mean? I was like, because I came away really inspired the one time that I visited it, and I thought that's probably the nicest tattoo weekend I've experienced for a long time. It was just super chilled, and I was like, man, that's fucking great, man. And everybody kind of left their egos behind, and
that's the light that you were talking about, though.
Yeah.
Light finds light. That's where you went to an event like that looking for something. You already have that light, that positivity, and now you want to do something with it yourself and start your own light. So that's super cool. That's what I mean. Like, there's still so many positive people in this industry, and there's so many wonderful people that realize every day that we're blessed and that we're magicians, and we should be thankful for doing this. That I'm still very positive about tattooing. I mean, I'm sure it's different now than it was even 5 years ago, but I look at it from now to even in the 80s, they didn't even wear gloves.
Yeah. I know, yeah.
We look at how much like PPE we go through now, and even 40 years ago, they didn't even do any of that stuff. So like, there's lots of room for changes, but I'm happy for the positive ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to look around for it. I think the danger is if you spend all of your time on social media, you get the impression that everything's horrendous and the end of the world has come. But like, because I follow a lot of tattooists, but I also follow a lot of musicians, and, they're all spelling, rock and roll's dead and it's the end of the music industry as we know it. And then I look at the music industry and go, that's actually measurable fact. It's fucking hard to make a living as a musician these days. But as a tattooist, it's really not that hard to make a living, still. You just have to be good and put out good art, right? And realistically, being good is your responsibility. It's only about doing the hard work and practicing.
Yeah.
Right, it's about, if you're not very good at tattooing, it's about sitting there with pig skin, in my case, when I was a kid, and or these days they do like ballpoint pens in cartridges, or practice skin or something like that. And it's about putting in the hours. Yourself, you've just been doing this. Literally, this is just like the last few years of your life, right? Where you have to put the fucking hours in. There's no shortcuts. There's no cheat code. It's just
for you.
No. You'll be real good at tattooing after 10 10,000 hours. So you got to put 10,000 hours in. It's as simple as that. Put your 10,000 hours in. That's full-time, 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. And like, if you're lucky, you know, you get the 1-5-10 principle, I'm like, you're in, you're just happy if you can put a clean tattoo in. Just putting a clean line in is a major step a year in, right? You know, because you think, fuck, that's great, man. You know, maybe one day I'll be able to get colour to go in solid, because everybody struggles with colour, getting colour nice and saturated, right?
Maybe
5 years.
Line, yeah.
Sorry?
I said, yeah, maybe I'll be able to pack to the line. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, can I colour right to the edge of the line because I'm terrified of it, right? You know, and all that sort of stuff, right? And it's, you know, everybody struggles with the various techniques, but a year in, you're really super proud. 5 years in, you know, it is all about the art that you're making, and it should be, because 5 years in, you're still consumed with it. And then I think by the time you get to 10 years in, where you hope to be is it's all about the client now. I've done the work that I need to do to be comfortable in my own skin and confident in my ability to pull this off for the client. And now it is all about the client. Yes. Because, you know, now I can do this job, and I know I can, and it's just about incrementally getting better each day, but it's about, is my client having a really fucking good time? Because they've taken a day off work, it's costing them money, they've had to save for a couple of months to afford what I'm going to do for them. They better walk out of here going, I've got a great tattoo that I really love, but also I laughed really hard in between, crying at how much it hurt. I got a decent cup of coffee, listened to some terrible music, and heard some bullshit conspiracy theories while I was sitting there. And, you know, because, I mean, I don't want to use the term, but I'm going to have to. Our clients deserve an experience. You know, they're sitting there on their day off, right? I hate the idea of tattoo experience. That sounds like some bullshit marketing, but it's that, you know, like come and live in our world for the day, you know, and so that they look forward to coming back because they'll be greeted like an old friend, right?
I even look at that though, and to say like, well, we shouldn't have a tattoo experience, then why did we have so many characters in the history of tattooing? You know, if you were supposed to have an experience, then why would we have guys like Philadelphia Eddie? You know, like,
oh, yeah.
Those craziest guys that would tell you crazy stories and off the wall stuff, and like those characters and that experience is what brought people in and back. So I personally think nothing has changed. The whining and dining of a client in a tattoo shop, I think, has always been an art form. It's always been a sale. I think you go back to the original roots of carnivals and sideshows where people would go and get tattooed at a sideshow. Well, they would have the guy out front who's trying to bring people in, you know, the salesman, who'd be like, come see this person, come see the tattooed woman, the tattooed man, you know. So that salesman mentality for tattooing, it's always been an experience. I think some of us have gotten lazy, and some people have forgot that our clients are worth that. They don't just want us to sit there in silence. You know,
I don't know if it was the same in the US, but I know that in the older, you know, really, really early days, so like Sutherland MacDonald and George Birch days of English tattooing, the tattoo shop, everything that was on the walls was for sale. And they collected it in their travels. Is that true? Is that the same in the US? Did they do that sort of stuff? It was like a junk shop where you could just buy shit off the walls while you were looking at your tattoo, while you were getting your tattoo.
Well, I don't know if they were. I don't know if they sold the flash in the United States off the walls like that. But everything.
Oh, this wasn't just flash. This was like, you know, these guys were like ex-sailors, so they might have some fucking tiki head or a bow and arrow or something like. Bloody hell, Sutherland, where did you get that bow and arrow from? Oh, sir, I got this in Papua New Guinea. So, would you sell it me? Yes, sir, I'll sell it you for 20 guineas. You know, and it was it's that kind of thing.
I'm sure that kind of stuff, the barter and trading and the selling of other goods, I'm sure that happened tons in the United States too as well, I'm sure. I just finished reading the George Bircher memoir book, his book. I just reading that. It was a great book. Lots of fun. And like even that with the history of England and the tattoos, I wanted to ask you, like, what is your guys' day rate over there? Do you guys even have for tattooists in England? Do you guys have people that charge per piece or by the day, or How does payments in England work?
Okay, so I can't say obviously for the rest of the country. I can say my understanding of it and the information that was given to me by friends when I started tattooing. Mm-hmm. So the first piece of information that I was given, the way that you price your tattoo was that a full sleeve should cost a gentleman or a lady the same price as a good watch. Not a great watch, but a good watch. So we're talking about, not a Patek Philippe or a Rolex. We're talking about maybe an Omega or a Tag, like good watch, not a great watch, right? So that's how you price your tattooing. So when I sort of got into it, off the wall tattoo stuff, so flash or like a design that somebody brings in. If it's, not too complicated, it would be charged at between, I guess, £30 and £60 an hour. But depending on where you are in the country, because the south of the country is a little bit more expensive than the north of the country, even though it's a tiny little country. I mean, you can fit England into Texas about 6 times. Yeah. So it would be between £30 and £60 per hour. And then for somebody who made their own artwork and drew it, it would be between £80 and £120 an hour. Is about it. Now, so that to me, I think, tattooing is one of those jobs. Personally, this is only my opinion. I think that it's one of those jobs where I think it has an inherent value that it will never exceed or never get less than. Like, I will not do tattoos for £10 an hour. I just don't see the point. But I also don't want to do tattoos for £500 an hour, because I think at some point you're profiteering, or and that's just price gouging to me. So I've always charged £100 an hour. That's what I charge. I think I'm worth £100 an hour. I think the quality of my work is worth £100 an hour. So that'd be like 110, 115 bucks, something like that per hour, which, I think, in New York that people would laugh at me. But like my understanding is that as you get into the country and you get to more the kind of real people, not the city dwellers, that's pretty similar to what you would charge in America.
Yes.
Not a million miles away, Obviously, like in London, you can fucking pay, $2,000 a day if you want, but like you're in London. It's like New York, you can pay a couple of $1,000 for a tattoo. But like, drive in country a little bit and get a better tattoo for cheaper, right?
Yeah, and see, so that was one of the things I was curious about, and it's the exact same way here. So you can go and get an amazing tattoo that's away from a city, in a smaller town, and it's an amazing tattoo, and it's half the price that the same tattoo in the city would have been. There is the price gouging in the United States based off of location and, of course, experience or style. But it was one of those things I was really curious about, because I see these videos and I look at reels online of people saying what the cost of their tattoo was, and I'm thinking sometimes, so you had someone for 8 hours, and an entire pay period worth of their paycheck is worth 1 8-hour day of your time. And that blows my mind. Like, I understand not selling yourself short, but I'm like, that person worked 40 hours.
40 fucking hours for 8 of yours. I just think you're taking the piss at that point. It's a joke.
Yeah. Like, it blows my mind. I'm like, whatever happened to just getting by? Like, as long as my bills are paid, I don't care if I.
But again, it comes back to that. You put a job on the TV and tell these people that they're rock stars. I mean, at one point, I had a 2-year waiting list anywhere in the world. And I could have gone, I tell you what, I can make the waiting list go away if you want to pay me $5,000 a day. Like, you pay me $5,000 for the tattoo, I'll make the waiting list disappear. But I never wanted to do that, because I'd feel like a scumbag, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I look at my work and I go, I think if you sit with me for 6 hours, it costs you £600. So, and I can do, about the size of like an A4 sheet of paper, like a letter size piece of paper in that amount of time. £600. It's pretty hard to do what I do. It's pretty individual. And I'm like, I think that's worth it. I think that's okay. You know, I get clients that are not footballers and rich people or anything like that. I get people that are regular working people that are serious about their tattoos, that have saved up for my job, and I do the best fucking tattoo I can do in the time for them. And all they have to do is sit still, listen to shit music, and drink coffee.
Yeah, and that's provided to them. You guys have the coffee there.
Yeah, man, we got a £1,000 coffee machine, man. I went to Italy and I picked up a bad habit. You can get a pretty good fucking flat white in my studio these days. I sent two of the guys, I sent my wife and my daughter on a barista course just so they could make me a good cup of coffee. But to me, I think that, you know, like I think of it like my mechanic, right? Like I take my car to be repaired. I don't think my mechanics charge more this decade than he did in the last decade, because I think being a mechanic it's pretty much the same job as it was. You know, we can all argue that the cost of living has gone up, but most people haven't had a pay rise in 10 years because of the state of the economy, right? So why the fuck would I put my prices up? You know, so actually what happens with me is most people, because I have you know, a presence on the internet or whatever the fuck you want to call it, and notoriety, whatever you want to say, they expect me to be one of those like £2,000 a day sort of people. I'm like, no, it's £100, same as everybody else. You know, I just
you're like, no, I'm just a real guy. Yeah.
I mean, just because I make my own fucking artwork, I think that makes me better than somebody who does flash tattoos? Of course it doesn't. That's a tattooist. I'm a tattooist. That guy that does the flash is going to be as good a fucking tattooer as me. He's going to be as skilled as I am, and he's going to be worth £100. Because if that's what you want, if you want a Burt Grimm piece from back in the day, and you want an accurate, faithful reproduction of it, then that guy's going to be the best guy for the job. You could pay £100 an hour for that every day of the week, and I'm no better and no different. I just happen to make my own artwork because, in all honesty, I'm better at doing my shit than that. I always look at it, if I wouldn't recommend me to get the job, then I probably won't take the job to do it. If I can think of one of my friends who would be better at doing that particular thing, I regularly just send that work to my friends. I go, no, I'm not the guy, but I know a guy who's really good at this. You should go with them. Because
that to me, though, too, is like not even just the respect for the client, it's the respect for this profession of tattooing. Like you
absolutely
respect tattoos so much that you realize that you wouldn't be the best person for the tattoo. Not even for the client, just for the tattoo.
Yeah, just for the tattoo. The art, I can't make the art look that good. You know, actually, it came from one of my absolute all-time heroes as a guitar player. One of my favourite guitarists, a guy called Steve Vai, who was, you know, he's this fucking phenomenal guitar player, and he was doing a clinic. And somebody said to him, look, hey, Steve, you're widely regarded as one of the best guitarists in the world. And he said, you know, thank you. And they said, do you have any deficiencies in your technique? And he said, yeah, sure, there's loads of things that I'm not very good at playing. And they said, oh, do you practice that stuff more then? And he just went, no, I just do the Steve Vai stuff.
Yeah.
And so I went, oh, yeah, maybe I'll just do the Paul stuff.
Nothing wrong with
what's the big deal? You know, I like doing the Paul stuff. I'm good at doing the Paul stuff, so I'll just do that. You know, and
if you find what you're good at, might as well. Yeah.
And if I can think of somebody better at, you know, because I've got loads of friends that do really beautiful traditional stuff. And I've got, a couple of friends that do amazing kind of outsider, you know, that kind of ignorant style artwork. I've got friends that do colour realism, black and grey, dot work. I can always think of somebody who would be better than me at anything other than the Paul stuff. So I'm like, well, look, if you can travel and you don't mind, I know a much better dot work guy in Liverpool that would do a way better job of this than I could. And so I just think you're right, it's for the art form. You know, let the guys that are really into it and passionate about that genre of tattooing, let them do it, because they'll be in love with it. And because I do that regularly now, my friends will go, listen, that's not for me, but I know a guy who's perfect for that. And a lot of clients come in and go, oh, so-and-so recommended that I came to speak to you because they think you're the best person for this job. And I'm like, that's it. One hand washes the other, right? What goes around comes around.
And that's paying it forward. That's putting the positive into this industry. You get the positive out. You know, like if you were going to not help people and you were just going to take people's money and do bad tattoos that you know you couldn't do, that doesn't benefit the industry. It doesn't benefit the art form. It doesn't benefit anyone.
No. And you'll know yourself, because you'll still be in the period of this. I don't know if this ever ends, right? If I think I fucked up a tattoo, right, I won't sleep for 2 days. because I'll sit there just like beating myself up about it because I hate that feeling. Thankfully, it's been a very, very long time since I felt that way. But when that happens to me, it is like a living death. It's just the worst thing in the world. And so now what I do is, in order to avoid that, I get really well prepared and make sure that my wife can tell when I've got something that I really need to focus on. She said, because the moment we get to the studio, it's like you're not there. It's like you start like setting your station up, and she's like, I even know. You don't even notice when I put a coffee down in front of you. You're just not fucking there. You're already doing the tattoo. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't help it. It's like I learned this from reading the odd sports person like biography of this visualizing the win kind of idea.
Yeah.
So I visualize the tattoo before I do it. I visualize myself finishing it, and then all I've got to do now is make that true because I've already seen it. So all I've got to do is just make that the truth now.
Yeah.
For that stuff, because it's important to me as well, and I'm sure it is to you. It's like I'm not here fucking around and living in the past. I'm trying to make really good fucking artwork, and at some point I would be over the moon if people went, you know, Paul did some fucking good tattoos in his time. He was all right. And that'll do me. You know, if my peers go, no, he was a good tattooist, that's fine. I don't need awards or accolades or any of that shit. Like, just my friends, you know, if you could be around after you weren't there and they went, do you know what, he was all right. He was a bit of an idiot at times, but he made some fucking nice tattoos. That'll do me. Yeah, job done.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, like, I got it and I'm like, I could die happy now, you know, like being a tattoo artist, making it, being in the same profession and doing some of the same things, doing tattoos that some of my tattoo idols drew, you know, able to recreate images that they made. I'm just like, yeah, couldn't really get any better than this. You know, I'm happy.
Do you know what you'll find though, right? So you're reminding me of things that that happened to me when I got into it, and then years later when I realised I was doing it. So the first time I got invited to a tattoo convention, as embarrassed as I am to admit this, I didn't actually know what the fuck a tattoo convention was. Okay. Right? And I'd been nominated for an award, and I didn't even know that they did that in the world of tattooing. I was like, oh, okay. And so I phoned my friend who taught me to tattoo because I thought it was some kind of like scam. Yeah. And he said, no, that's a real thing. And I was like, what? So what the fuck is a tattoo convention? He went and he explained what it was. And I said, I don't get it. And he went, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take you to a tattoo convention and you can see. So the first tattoo convention I ever visited was the London Tattoo Convention at Tobacco Dock. And we walked around and I can see these tattooists. Like, I mean, I know my friends' tattoos, and with the best will in the world, God bless them, they ain't the best tattooist in the world, right? And all of a sudden, I mean, you know, I'm looking at some of the greatest tattooists that are there at the time.
Yeah.
And the level of work was staggering. But also, these guys are making tattoos that I can't fathom how good they are. I'm like, fuck, these things are amazing. And they're sitting laughing and joking and bullshitting each other from one side of the aisle to the other and fuck you, man. To concentrate so hard. I'm never going to be able to do that. And I forgot all about it in a booth next to me. And I was tattooing away and we were sitting, talking, bullshitting about the night before and the weird restaurant that we went to with the peanuts on the floor or something. And as I was doing it, I realised, fuck, I've become those guys. When did that happen? I've turned into that thing that I thought I could never be.
Yep, you made it. All those years
man.
passed by and you turned into it on your own. Yeah.
It's really funny. It was like an ugly duckling to a swan moment. You went, oh, I'm here. I've made it.
That was tattooing saying, all right, Paul, if you give us your time, we'll take care of you. And it did.
It was really good. And I think it's important to notice those things. You know, I still, you know, the first time I find myself in a new city, you know, I mean, like I was so excited to tattoo in New York the first time I tattooed there because, you know, I'd never done that, you know, and it was like, that's amazing. The last time I'd been in New York, I was there with the band and I was like, man, I'm here with tattoo machines. And then I find myself sitting watching the sun go down in Rome on the steps of this building that we were in a convention. I'm like, how the fuck did I get here with nothing but a tattoo machine? And I think you have to, I mean, some people would say that was, you know, naive and a little bit childish or something. But I'm like, I don't think it is. I'm still blown away the fact that tattoo machines allow me to travel, and this art form takes me all around the world, and I meet these amazing people. I think if you lose sight of that, then what the fuck are you doing it for?
Absolutely.
Like, we're so lucky. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. Like, tattooing is like such a silly, silly thing. So goofy. Like, people give us money for us to hurt them and to ink under the first layer of their skin in designs. Like, it's such a silly thing. It's amazing and magical, and it can take you anywhere in the world, and you can meet hundreds of thousands of people of all walks of life, and you can experience things that no other profession will let you experience. And I think that's the rock star part of it for me, is we can all see that there's something magical there, but television tried to tell us what the magic was. But no, it is very magical. Everyone can see it. There's something magical about tattooing. It's not Dave Navarro and Ink Masters or LA Ink or any of those shows. It's not the Hollywood. But there's something magical about it.
Well, we've known this, haven't we, since ancient times. We've been inking ourselves since we made fire. I think just after we made a fire and the fire went out, that's when we invented tattoos. We went, if we put that black shit in our skin, that's going to stay there. So I think we've known something, that there is something spiritual or something uplifting in tattooing that makes us all better. Absolutely. And I just think we've had our eyes taken off the ball a little bit with television and the kind of rock star thing. But I think slowly as that fades, we're getting back to, hey, it's a really cool thing, but it does some mad shit for people. It's good fun. It's probably not going to save the world, or if it does, it'll do it right after rock and roll does or something like that. But at the same time, it does make a lot of people feel better about themselves, which I think is healing in some way. Yeah. And I think that we can't put too much importance on that because we're not medical health professionals, but or mental health professionals as well. But we can certainly draw on people and make them look on the outside like they feel on the inside. I mean, that's okay. We can do that.
That's fine. No, it's true. It's funny though. Like I still, because it is fresh. Like, this isn't a long career for me so far, but I catch myself thinking about it every once in a while when I'm tattooing somebody, that I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this right now.
I know. Dude, that doesn't go away. I'm 20 years in and I still feel like that every day. Yeah. Every day that I'm doing it, every day I go into the studio to tattoo, I'm still excited to tattoo. Yeah. I still spend my evenings drawing stencils and having a good time. And I quit drinking a few years ago, so I'm a lot more productive in the evenings now because I'm not drunk all the time. But every day I go into tattoo and I'm just excited to start and to do it. And I don't think I can't ever see me losing that, to be honest with you. I think if I ever was to lose that, I think I'd probably stop tattooing because I'd think that something was wrong. Right. I get nervous about tattooing. Before I start, I still get nervous because I don't want to fuck it up, because I care about it for the client, and I care about the artwork, and I want to do the best job I can. And I don't know. I was like anybody. You thought, well, after a few years, this will go away. But that shit just doesn't go away for me. It's like I'm still fascinated with this stuff. I still feel like I haven't even scratched the fucking surface of what's possible with tattooing.
Yeah, I've started to get used to the feeling of like the butterflies in your stomach, or like you're gonna throw up or die. Started getting used to it, but you're right. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. Every time it's the same. The only time I can tattoo somebody and I don't feel that painful gut feeling of nervousness is if it's like one of my family members or like a friend, like a best friend or something, because then it's just doesn't really feel as serious. But still important. It's still permanent.
Yeah, I mean, it's still important. It's still important. Usually your family and your friends are the worst customers in the world. They wriggle around too much. They demand coffee and biscuits and shit. Oh, yeah. Usually they're a pain in the ass. Yeah. I always make them wait the longest,
Yeah.
It's the only time where I accept gifts. I've got like a wish list on my Amazon that's called shit that Paul wants but he doesn't need, and that's how all my friends pay for their tattoos. Because I don't charge any of my friends for tattooing. It just has to happen on my day off, and I tell them I don't care what it is. Just buy me something off the wish list, and we'll call it quits. You just bring whatever you want. Packs of fucking guitar strings, plectrums, fucking stupid color changing lights. And I just add comic books. All kinds of comic books and novels and shit I want to read and stuff like that. I'm like, whatever. And because most of my friends, because that's how I practiced. I practiced on most of my friends, and they have got the worst fucking tattoos I have ever done. Some of them might be the worst tattoos I've ever seen. There's at least, on my oldest friends, there's at least a couple where you go, if you did that tattoo and it looked like that, why the fuck did you do it again? Because clearly you've got no aptitude for this job. But because of that, I was like, look, I promise I'll give you nice tattoos when I'm fucking good at this job. And so now I'm just paying them back,
I have one of those. My best friend Jesse was the first person that I tattooed that wasn't myself. And man, I love that guy. He's got some bad tattoos on him. And
that for me is my friend Glyn, right? He's got a tattoo of a dragonfly on the inside of his arm that looks like it was done by somebody who'd never seen a dragonfly in real life, but had recently had one described to him. And that's literally, honestly, it might be the worst tattoo you've ever seen.
Oh, man.
But we're here and doing it, right?
Yeah. Those are the things that keep us up at night, and we just keep going and back for more every day.
Yeah, back for more every day. If any of us ever do the perfect tattoo, we'll all stop. Yeah, like, that's the whole point. We never do, and we just go back and go, I can be a bit better tomorrow. I can be a bit better tomorrow. And as long as you keep that mindset of like, look, I just want to be. I'm not in competition with anybody except me yesterday. That's all I got to do is be a bit better than I was yesterday. And the only problem is me yesterday keeps getting a bit better because that's how it happens. But it's very incremental. And I think if you can keep that mindset, all the way through. I mean, how many people could say they've worked a job for 20 years and they still love it as much as they did on the first day? No. I don't think there's not many jobs that can give you that, right?
No. Not really. I mean, and to think too, like the responsibility of being self-employed, being a tattoo artist, to stay successful, you have to be hungry. So for 20 years, you've stayed hungry as well. How many people can say that they haven't taken the foot off of the gas in 20 years at their job either? So that's something that one hand washes the other, as you said. Yeah.
Well, you see, the reason that I can't take my foot off the gas is that from a very young age, I've been a huge fan of Hunter S. Thompson. Okay. And so I believe wholeheartedly in, like, just get to the finish line, to my coffin in this used up husk of a body that I've just got all the gas and the juice out of it. I'm like, I ain't leaving anything on the fucking table. There'll be nothing left by the time I'm done with it. I'm just going to keep, go hard till the day you die. Because otherwise, what's the fucking point of living? Like, I had a conversation with somebody the other day. They said, have you got an idea when you're going to retire? And I said, I'm never going to fucking retire. I'm going to die in the chair. Yeah. And they said, what do you mean? I went, why the fuck would I retire from this job? I love doing this thing. So as long as I can hold a tattoo machine and sit up reasonably straight, then fuck it. I'm just going to keep on doing this job, until somebody won't let me,
And how many tattoo artists have a 401k or like a retirement, How many tattoo artists are saving up for that kind of retirement anyway? We don't have that as tattoo artists. We don't have retirement plans.
No, I mean, I don't think it's a job you can retire from. I just don't think it is. To me, it seems really weird to think about doing this thing that I love and then stopping doing it for no reason other than I've had another birthday and somebody arbitrarily decides, oh, you can't be a tattooist anymore because you're now 90. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck, you can carry on doing it as long as people want to get tattooed by you. And I can hold the machine. Then I'm going to carry on.
And that's all we can do. Yeah, every day. I mean, as long as somebody keeps coming in and getting tattoos, I'll just keep doing them.
The way I look at it, the oldest tattooist in the world is 117 years old. So that means I'm halfway there. Yeah. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm only halfway there. Yeah. I'm like, it's like I've got pretty good in 20 years. Imagine if you gave me another 50 plus years. Like I reckon I could get pretty fucking good in another 50 years of practice. You know? I might be able to do a proper realistic rose by then.
Yeah.
You know?
If not,
50 years.
Stop. Yeah, maybe if not, then we'll stop that. Yeah, if not.
Yeah. Which I'm never admitting defeat. Eventually I'm going to nail that thing. I'm going to be able to do him as good as Phil Garcia. I just figured if I watch that fucking video enough times, it'll unlock itself. Yeah, it'll happen. Listen, man, with that, it's been absolutely lovely talking to you. I love your perspective on the world.
I really appreciate you letting me have this opportunity to speak with you, getting to have a nice conversation.
Hey, other people's perspectives is what it's all about. You know, we don't want to just hear from people that have been in the industry for 30, 40 years. It's nice to hear. I was chatting with somebody who's been he's a Brazilian artist called Yuri. I was chatting with him last time, and he's been in the industry about six or 9 years. I can't remember what he said now. And to me, it's really nice to hear, you know, that there are people coming in that are super positive, that are really excited about this craft and the trade. And the more of us that people hear that are going, look, it's not the end of the world. We just got to do things differently. I'm hoping that it will give people listening, you know, a bit of hope and positivity, that they'll go, look, it's not, maybe, you know, we just have to keep working and not worry about it too much. You just keep making great art, right?
Yeah, that's all I could ask for too. Anybody who thinks the doom and gloom is too much, that's because it is. You don't have to pay attention to it. There are positives happening and people who are positive and happy to be here.
Switch your phone off and go outside. There's loads of people having a lot of fun. And with that, mate, thank you very much, man. And I'll speak to you real soon, right?
Yep, have a good one.